Okay, so microphone setup. Sound. Okay. Hello? Hello, 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 hello. Okay. I'm going to hear myself here. Sorry. Should go this way. Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. Sounds. Wait. What? What? Hello? 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 Sounds good. Okay. I think this one sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, so this is hi guys. This is James and reading English 100 days challenge. Today is day 24. So okay. I'm gonna open a book. A book. Let me see. A book. A grand strategy seducing the subconscious. Books. The psychology of advertising, theory and models of communication marketing insights, marketing 4.0, and essentials of advertising strategy decoded, Headline: A Global History of Advertising. Well, let's check this out. Adland. Ad, ad, adlab, adlined. A Global History of Advertising. Preface to the second edition. Pioneers of Persuasion. From propaganda to soap, Madison Avenue aristocracy, aristocracy, Madison Avenue aristocracy, creative revolutionaries, the Chicago Way, the Brit Pack, 80s extravagance, the French Connection, European icons, media spins off. Oh, that's a lot. Japanese giant, a short history of Denzu, advertising, haiku style, soccer and Shiseido, the Challenger Agency, Latin Spirit, international outposts, shooting stars from pop to soda, controversy in Cannes, new frontiers, and so to China, Asian creativity, the agency of the future, content providers and inventors, shape shifting giants. Wow, this sounds interesting. I want to take a look at chapter 12, the Japanese giants, because I work for the Denzu Aegis group. Let's take a look. Japanese giants, 15 seconds and counting. The 47-story Dentsu building slices through the Tokyo skyline like a shark's fin swathed in glass. Every day around 6,000 people come to work here for the world's fifth largest advertising organization, whose net income of more than 40 billion yen, 453 million US dollars, is largely generated is largely generated in Japan. Entering the building, which was designed by French architect Jean Nouvel, is like stepping into the first class. It's like stepping into the first class lodge of a spaceport. The lobby is an infinite ballroom lined in marble and steel. The round reception desk seems to hover silently, cradled by softly glowing panels. Glossy haired receptionists in silver gray uniforms being in immaculate Shiseido smiles. An exposed glass elevator threads through a mesh of steel as your stomach plunges into the receding city. I spent almost a week visiting Denzhou and I never got a handle on the geography. Perspective seems to wrap and elide. There were entire floors of restaurants, and the executive floor looked more like a museum with priceless works and art sorry, on the walls. On other floors, rows of desks tapped into the middle distance to get an idea of the organization's bu- uh, bustle and hum. I was encouraged to visit its website, where vertical, multicolored columns tracked the elevator's movements in real time. I was an honored guest of Dengzu, which was extremely useful position to be in. The Japanese know how to take care of visitors. There was no way I would be allowed to leave before I knew everything there was to know about the company. But first, I will give a little background. A short history of Dengzu. It's easier to find out that the history of Japanese advertising while you visiting Dengzu, because the Museum of Tokyo is located right next door to the agency's headquarters in Shiodomi. The museum was established in 2002 to to commemorate the 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 centennial of the birth of Dengzu's fourth president, Hideo Yoshida, who is widely regarded as the father of modern Japanese advertising. We'll get to him shortly. Although the company that became Dentsu was founded in 1901, and its rival Hakuhodo in 1895 forms of advertising existed in Japan long before them. Wow, okay. Long before them, from the earliest day of the Edo period, advertising flyers were posted on the pillars of shadow shrines and Buddhist temples, as well as on the fences and gateposts. Japanese newspapers yet had yet to appear, so So ads were often inserted into books, owing to short-gum rulers' policy of sakuku, or isolation. Isolation under under which no Japanese was allowed out of the country and foreign entry was strictly controlled. News of the outside world came in the form of Dutch newspapers. The Dutch East India Company, being the only overseas organization permitted to trade with the country. During the Meiji period, under the Empire, Meiji means entitled rulers. It given his given name. His given name was Mushihito. The country opened up to foreign influence, along with other trappings of Western-style civilization, other the telegraph and the railway, to certain styles of of dress. Newspapers and magazines finally arrived. Modernization further accelerated after the end of the Sino-Japanese War in 1895. As the press became increasingly dependent on advertising for revenue, the first advertising agencies were found to trade in media space. In 1901, a journalist named Hoshiro Mitsunaga laid the foundation of Dentsu by creating the news agency Telegraph Services Co. to cover the stormy political events of the day. In a in a barter style arrangement, many newspapers paid for his stories by donating advertising space, which is sold on through a subsidiary company. Japanese advertising in 1907. These two units were merged under the name Nippon Den Dempo. What the hell, shot? Eventually shortened to Dentsu. Then Dentsu. Okay. Nippon Dempo Sushisha. Okay, I'm gonna mark this. Well, in yellow. Okay. The company the company won executive rights to distribute the prize. Wait, I'm gonna light. I'm gonna turn on the lights. Yeah, let's turn on the lights. Okay, should be better now. Company who exclusive rights to distribute the United Press Wire, the United Press Wire service in Japan, and it used this monopoly to negotiate even chapter rates for advertising space. Advertising itself is becoming increasingly prominent with the emergence of four full-page spreads and a significant rise in the numbers of women magazines. In the run up to First World War, Dentsu was already a force to be reckoned with, operating out of the office in Ginza district. Advertising spread slowed during the harsh inner war years. 1936. In 1936, Denzel's news service was nationalized, and the company now concentrate exclusively on advertising. Although the industries assumed its inevitable wartime role as a diffuser of propaganda, its income was severely restricted. At the end of what must have been the most somber, somber period of the company, Dentsu founder Hoshiro Misunaga died died in 1945. The rival of Hideo Yoshida as the company's fourth president in 1947 was a turning point for Dentsu. It coincided with the rise of the Japanese middle class and the emergence of mass consumption. Eagerly supported by advertising, Yoshida became known as the Big Demon, and his hard-working staff as the Little Demons. He took he took advantage of the post-war period by recruiting former army officers and bureaucrats with useful government connections. Senior executives were expected to report for duty an hour earlier than the rest of the staff, and to provide daily reports on the progress of their departments. The annual team building trips was a bracing climbing up the mountain Fuji. Seeing the future and liking the look of it, in 1950, Yoshida became Japan's greatest advocate for the launch of commercial broadcasting. After investing in radio, Dentsu practically underwrote the introduction of television, as well as guaranteeing advertising support. The very first TV spot broadcast in Japan was a time-checked sponsor by Seiko watches. It was naturally a Dentsu creation. The agency's symbiotic relationship with the media meant it was soon able to grab the lion's share of television advertising space, up to 60% of the prime time, making it impossible to ignore the company's largest advertiser. Dentsu had also invested heavily in the press and forged guarantee to buy newspaper space in bulk. By the 1960s, Dentsu pretty much had a lock on media in Japan. In 1974, it was named the largest advertising agency in the world of advertising age. Although the Japanese economy experienced very dips in the 70s, the fallout of Vietnam War and two oil crises, advertising expenditure continued to rise. A trade imbalance caused by the growth of exports to the United States caused further economic instability in early 1980s. By the middle of the decade, however, driven by the developer of satellite TV, advertising spend was climbing again. During a 10-year period from 1981, total expenditure more than doubled. Dentsu had remained reliant on Japanese buildings for much of its history, but it has also acknowledged that it is a potential weakness and has fought uh, insolent insolarate insolarity insolarity In 1981, it established joint venture with Young Rubicon called DYR. This allowed the U.S. agency to enter the Japanese market while giving Dentsu access to the United States and Europe. Dentsu also showed consideration foresight by opening a branch in Shanghai the same year. Oh, okay. It has since become one of the most prominent overseas agencies in China. It has a strong network of subsidiaries throughout Asia, with a more muted presence in Europe and with a more muted presence in Europe and North America. It acquires UK's collect de, Dixon Peers in 1990s. The collapse of Japan's bubble economy in 1991 and the subsequent lapse in consumer spending heralded a change in the way that Japanese agencies did business. And at that point, they were essentially media brokers. Although they developed creative products, the spots were compressed to 50 seconds in order to cram as many as possible into a break. But Japan's newly crush-shaped consumers now required a bit more persuasion before they reach for their wallets. In order to convince them, advertisers would have to build attractive brands, which meant paying more attention to creativity, an area in which the agencies were weak. Their evolution from commodity providers to create resources is still ongoing. In addition, the arrival of satellite TV and the internet threatened Dentsu's dominance in the media market and offered new avenues for advertisers as well as ways for a smaller, nimbler agencies to break through the blockade. Advertising haiku style. Haiku mini movie. 别吵. The acquisition of Beacon 3 by Beacon 3 by Publicis gave Dentsu a 50% stake in French advertising group. That relationship ended in 2012. Publicis brought back its stake, and Dentsu shocked the industry by then announcing a 3.2 billion cash deal to buy UK-based group Aegis, owned owner of media buying and planning entity Karat, along with several other operations. This consolidated Dentsu's status as a member of Big Five and put it more squarely in competition with Omnicom, WPP, and Interpublic. Dentsu is the world's largest single advertising agency with more than 20,000 employees worldwide, far larger than its closest rival in Japan. It dominates advertising spends in the country, particularly on television, where it is responsible for almost a third of all spending. In 20,000, it invested in Beacon 3 groups of agencies, which include Leo Burnett, and the following year it went public. With the listing on the Tokyo Stock Exchange, the acquisition of becomes a public a 50% stake in the French advertising group. That relationship ended in 2010 when Brendan and Publicis bought back its stake in Dentsu stock in the industry by them announcing a 3.2 billion cash deal to buy UK-based group, each is owner of Medium Pie, and along with other operations, advertising haiku style. Slashed to only a few seconds. Japanese ads blurred from the screen like noisy, incandescent, incandescent fireworks with Western creatives weird many movie commercials that sneered at this pared down format. It slots perfectly into Japanese culture. Denzo Chief Creative Officer Kanehiko Tainaka says TV commercials in Japan try to place an emphasis on fast emotional impact. You will often find simple words and phrases, songs, jingles, and highly memorable characters. The aim is to stand out from the other commercials. We have the feeling that Western advertising is very rational. It's marketing oriented and strategic. Our advertising is media oriented and instinctive. The compressed format springs partly from tradition. In your early days, running a TV ad conveyed such a high status on the brand that 50 seconds sufficient sufficient to make point. But it transpired the viewers were predisposed to swallow these bite-sized um, Tanaka explained that Japanese advertising has a clear links with another, much older aspects of country's culture, haiku, the beautiful wine-line poetry, whose best-known prominent among Westerners is probably Basho. This is an art form entirely based on symbolism. The Japanese are skilled at reading between the lines so the audience can extrapolate from a single image. The ability to appreciate a self-contained world without insisting on narrative may explain Japan's preeminence in the field of video games. Even its famous manga comics demonstrates a non-linear approach to storytelling. Executive creative director Akira Kagami says, outside Japan, comic books are generally story-oriented. Manga tend to be situation-oriented. Once said, the approach is more abstract. You can see mantra strips with just four panels. Even two is occasionally enough. He points out this accusation of lack of creativity based on the brevity of Japanese commercials is unfair. Selling a product in 50 seconds is a skill in itself. And when you have only a few words to play with, precision is everything. Strangely enough, he added, and digital media take hold and attention spans shorter. I have a feeling that advertising in other markets is becoming more like our own. In the 70s and 80s, there was a much bigger gap in comprehension between Western and Asian audiences, which was reflected in our reflection in our performance at international creative competitions. But since 1990s, Asian creativity has been welcomed and admired. In any case, Japanese advertising cannot be approached in a simplistic catch-all fashion. They are original styles advertising for metropolitan Tokyo's audience and the heartland of Canton Canton region, a glossy and modern, but there's also work aimed at the south central Kasa region, whose capital is Osaka. The region is considered more cultural and idealistic than business like Tokyo. The advertising crafted for its citizens is more cynical and often does better at Cannes, Soccer and Shiseido. Okay, that's all for today, and see ya.